Do I have enough money to retire? As you can imagine, that's a pretty common question. And at the same time, it's also a very complex question because there's a lot of moving pieces for each individual that asks that question. And so in this video, I want to walk you through some of the things that you should be thinking about as you ask yourself, do I have enough money to retire? So one of the things that we use is something we call our 6 pillars of impact. Now, I'm not going to go through that this time, but ultimately it's 6 things that we think you need to be thinking about and considering as you make that transition into retirement. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to cover just the first pillar, which is an income plan. And so I want to go through what that means and how it and why it's important. Now, a lot of times I will ask someone that's sitting across my conference table, we'll have this discussion and I will ask them, what does your income plan look like? And ultimately what ends up happening is they'll push like an investment statement across the counter, across the table, and they'll say, well, my plan is I'm just gonna take money out of this account, each month, and I think that's gonna do the trick. Now, I want you to really think about that. What should an income plan accomplish? What should we be thinking about as we map out an income plan? So, first of all, we have to determine, a lot of people have pensions. Now, they're less and less as time goes on, but ultimately, you have to make a decision when to turn your pension on and which survivor benefit you want to take. Now, each pension's different, and so each scenario is going to require a different set of decisions to be made, but ultimately, that is going to be extremely valuable to make a good decision on your pension. Now, here's the other thing. Probably one of the more complex pieces that you're going to have to make a decision on is Social Security, especially if there's husband and wife, and especially if both of you have a work record with a Social Security benefit. Now, many times we see people leave a lot of money on the table by making decisions that we don't think are in their best interest. And so you need to really map this out and understand how Social Security might apply in your situation and what is the best way to take it. Now, another thing we have to decide is, well, how much money do we actually, not only do we need to live on, but how much are we planning to take out of our investments? Because, going back to that investment statement I just showed you, when I ask that question, what does your income plan look like? And they say, well, my plan is I want to take money just out of that investment account. Well, how much? How much do you need? Well, we have to identify what that gap is. So another thing that's important as part of the income plan. Now, another thing, required minimum distributions. Now, required minimum distributions, anytime you have an IRA or a 401k or maybe a 457, when you turn 73 or 75, depending on your age, you'll be forced to take money out of those type of retirement accounts. And there's a predetermined formula on how much has to come out each year. So you need to be aware that that is going to happen as part of your income plan, whether you want it to or not, if you have qualified retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks. So you need to be thinking about how that applies in your situation. Taxes. Have we accommodated in your income plan how much money you will need to cover your tax liability each year? Health insurance. Now, there's a lot of people that retire early. Now, when you turn 65, you are eligible for Medicare. But prior to that, you've got to find your own way of getting health insurance, whether that's your old employer or whether you go to the marketplace, whatever that is, that needs to be part of your income plan because that's an added, potentially large expense that we need to accommodate inside of the income plan. Now, this is a really important question. As you look at the needs that you may have to live the lifestyle you want to live, you may have an IRA, you may have a Roth IRA, and maybe you have an after-tax investment. Ultimately, you have to determine from which bucket should I take money from and what is the most efficient way to cover the gap, the income gap that I have. And that one can be pretty complex, but ultimately it needs to be answered because this one might change every year depending on how all the pieces come together. And then lastly, have we accommodated the fact that what we need today is probably less than what we need 10 years from now because over time we're going to need more money, right? Now, for those of you that have for those of you that haven't watched my other video on the different phases of retirement and how to maybe think about the expenses that you might incur in retirement, that might be something to really look at and watch, because it'll help answer some of these questions kind of from a different perspective. But here's a sample income plan that we've built out for this client. And what we can see is at the top, we can see, okay, here's all their investment accounts. Here is their income, right? Because this particular couple is actually still working. They got one more year of working. And then what you'll notice is we've got a early retirement pension. We have another pension. And then ultimately we have some planned distributions, which are going to be RMDs. And so the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is we have to map out how much money we have, how much income we have, how much expense we have, and then you'll notice red numbers. Now, a red number indicates that we don't have enough income for the amount of expenses. And so a red number tells us we have to go get that money from one of your investment accounts. And so that is that next step. What investment account are we going to take that money from? Okay. Now, one of the things, folks, that you can do on your own, because I recognize that an income plan like this it can be complex for the average person to map out. But what you can do, something that you can do today at your house, is you can essentially just get out a piece of paper and write down the next 5 years. Just write down 2025, 2026, 2027 through 2029. And then I want you to then write on the far left side, just write pension, write Social Security, write expenses. And then ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to map this out for each one of these years. So in this case, let's just assume that we're going to get $4,000 from pension. We're going to get $3,000 from Social Security. So that means we have $7,000 a month that's coming in to our financial world each month. Well, how much is going out? Well, let's assume that we've mapped it all out and we need $10,000 to cover the lifestyle we want to live when we factor it all in. Well, what that means is that we have a gap, right? We have a $3,000 gap from our income to our expense. So now we look at this $3,000 and we say, okay, we need to supplement our income by $3,000. Where do we go get it? Okay. So I want you to think about this from a very simplistic view. Imagine if you just did this every year, because it will change, right? Once again, with RMDs alone, that'll change your income plan. And we might find that, maybe your expenses are changing too, because maybe you end up, paying your house off within a few years of retiring, or whatever your situation is. Ultimately, this will give you a lot of confidence as you kind of look at this roadmap and you say, okay, so this is where my income is going to come from. This is the gap that I have, and this is how I'm going to fill it. Folks, I hope this was helpful. As you think about, can I retire? I hope this kind of resonates on some of the moving pieces you need to put together, especially when it comes to your income plan. And if this has been helpful, please share with your family and friends. And if you would like to have some individual help and you want to engage with our team, there is a link in the notes below where you can connect with them. Either way, look forward to the next video.